If you want to save time and still get accurate results, then partner with 4 Pillars Research, proud sponsors of PI Perspectives. We specialize in uncovering insurance policies that can make or break your case. From identifying unknown policies to uncovering accurate policy information, we streamline the process so you can focus on your case. Partner with 4 Pillars Research and unlock the full potential of your investigations. Visit researchfpr.com to learn more.
It's time for OSINT Live. This Wednesday, October 15th at 9:30 a.m., Scope Now is proud to host its yearly gathering of open source investigation experts. It's not too late to sign up, and it's free. Just visit skopenow.com, scopenow.com for details on how to register. Do you enjoy our podcast and the guests we bring you? Since 2019, Matt and his team have done their very best to give you amazing shows each week. If you feel like our show has helped you to be a better investigator, or maybe even inspired you to become an investigator, please let us know. We're looking for testimonials. Drop Matt an email with a recorded 20 to 30 seconds of you talking about this podcast. You can also email him something verbal about the website. His email is matthew.s@satellitepi.com. And if you really feel blessed for having this content, consider supporting Matt and our show by joining Investigators Toolbox. You really have to see version 2.0. And at just 49 cents a day, it's a no-brainer. Now let's jump in to this week's episode. Welcome to the next episode of PI Perspectives. We're back and bringing you new guests and new content. Today we feature Don Redl from Apex Intelligence Group. Don's an expert on use of force, litigation, and has some great insight on the subject. This is just an awesome episode, so let's jump right in. Please welcome Don Redl and your host, New York Private Investigator, Matt Spaier.
And welcome everyone to this week's episode of PI Perspectives. This is Matt Spaier, your host. I had teased before that I'm got some brand new guests coming on, some people we haven't spoken to before, and this is a guy I went all the way to Colorado to meet, and we're actually from the same place in New York, apparently. So I want to welcome Don Redl to the program. Don, how are you?
I'm good, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we had to go halfway across the country to hang out, which is pretty funny. So the name of your company is Apex Intelligence. You did a really, really great presentation to the Colorado Association. But why don't you tell people a little bit about your background, what you do, and basically what you're talking about out there as well.
Well, I've been in the business for 30 years, a private investigator. We're licensed in New York, Florida, and Wyoming. We used to be licensed in Colorado until they got rid of the licensing provisions out there, which is a whole other topic. But my journey in this industry started a long time ago, living in New York. Back in the early 90s, I was a competitive pistol shooter and a good one at that. I'd be out and I'd win matches, and it was fun and recreational. The New York State in 1992 enacted the Security Guard Registration, Licensing, and Training Act, because prior to that it was unregulated industry.
Yeah.
So in order to dive into that and start teaching those classes, we were doing the NRA classes and things prior to that. Yeah. But anyways, you had to go through the NRA law enforcement firearms instructor program. So I went and did that down at the Marine Corps base in Quantico. It was a fantastic program.
Yeah, it must have been fun.
And it was a great time, and it was a good learning experience as well. Yeah. But anyways, then I started a school in New York State, the DCJS licensed school, which we still have to this date, 30 years later. Right. And we were teaching all the guard classes. So the interesting thing about the way the law was written back then is it didn't matter what you did as a security guard. If you were the young kid watching the security cameras at a big box store, or if you were protecting the CEO of a major Fortune 100 company, you had to go through the same New York State licensing classes.
Yeah, what's interesting about that is when that went down, so Aldenese, the Associated Licensed Detectives of New York State, which I'm the chairman of it now, it's former president, I did the whole track on that. That's a feather in our cap. Like that whole law and the way it was supposed to be and the way it ended up is because of Aldenese going in there and advocating for the security guard companies and making it, like realizing, okay, there's change coming. We got to make sure that, the way this law is written, it's not going to put us out of business. And,
Right.
we're still going to be able to basically do the job that we're supposed to do. Right. So it's really interesting that you're referencing that and knowing, that I know I wasn't in the association at that point. I came in a couple of years later after it, but man, that's the big thing. Whenever we're talking to members, like, why do I need to join that state association? We always reference back to that particular situation and how our lobbyists and the board at the time were really, really instrumental in making sure that was formed in a way that was allowing us to do what we needed to do. Right.
Sure, sure. Well, we're very lucky in New York State with DCJS because it's really run by a great group of people who are not just in it to collect a paycheck and go home. Their heart is in it as well. They want to see the program succeed and grow. And we've had a great relationship with them for decades. And they're
Right.
always willing to listen, say, hey, listen, I got an idea. Can we change this? What do you think about that? They're always open to suggestions.
Yeah.
So, and I've seen a lot of other states' programs, and New York State really is it's a leg up on pretty much everybody else. It's a real good program.
Yeah, we've got a pretty good relationship with the Department of State also with regards to licensing for investigators.
Mm.
We do have issues that come up from time to time where members will, um, say, "Hey, like I've got this issue, I've got this problem. Do you know anybody?" They're pretty responsive on calling us back. The, the law that I was trying to change and during my run as president, which I thought was the low hanging fruit, it'd be no problem, but try and deal with politics in New York State, and that'll teach you something, right? So this is the Concealed Carry Act, where if you're not former law enforcement, but you're a licensed holder, you're permitted to have a carry permit. There are certain areas in New York that you're still not allowed to go, even though you carry a gun license. You're not permitted to bring a firearm, like churches, movie theaters, stuff like that. And the problem that comes into place is when you have people doing executive protection and they're contracted to carry, and your client goes into one of those areas where you're not supposed to carry. Well, now you're breaking the law, trying to fulfill your contract, right? And they gave a carve out to security guards, but they didn't give a carve out to private investigators who do executive protection work. It's the language like it's General Business Law 7 and 7A or 7A. And the folks who are not from New York, I apologize because I'm going on here, but it's fascinating because, the way the legislation works with guns is so crazy. You say the G word to somebody, especially if they're on the blue side of the aisle there, it's like, oh my God, this is crazy. I can't be involved with anything like that. And we're like, no, we just need to revise a bill. It's literally housekeeping,
Yeah.
right? There was a grammatical error in the bill that you wrote. Can we please correct it? And we're still trying to do it. So.
No, no. And what's interesting is if you own a private investigation agency, like you and I both do, you can employ security guards.
Yeah. Yeah.
in that
That's the
agency.
crazy
Yeah.
part is you actually are a security guard defined by the
Yeah.
business law, a security guard company without actually being a security guard company.
Yeah.
But if you're non-law enforcement and you're carrying in those non-retired law enforcement, I'm sorry, and you're carrying within that particular area, you're violating the law. Go figure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, getting back to the training, we were teaching all the classes, and back then it was kind of the big rush. Everybody had to get training for licensing. So we had a lot of people coming through the classes, and I consequently met a lot of high level executive protection people. And I always viewed shooting and firearms, and of course, I shot competitively, but my heart was always on the defensive side of it. It was never really. I never really sought out to be a grandmaster shooter. It's always more of a defensive mindset.
Right.
So some of the people in the executive protection industry took a liking to me and suggested I kind of move in that direction. So I went down to the DC area, took a couple executive protection classes from former Secret Service people. And I kind of got into the business on on the bottom. I would say I did though. There's nothing I could ask somebody to do today that I haven't already done. Terrible job. But anyway, so for a long time, I was in that business as well, working as a contractor. I spent a lot of time all over the United States, and even outside the United States, doing executive protection jobs. Kind of went up the ladder pretty quick in that industry. Got some good clients of my own. And then back around 2003, I decided I wanted to move into the investigative side of the business because
Right.
when you're working in executive protection, you're really just doing a comprehensive investigation with a small security component attached at the end. So I wanted to get more into the investigative side of the business and build that up. So we opened the Florida company, still active in New York, still doing the training, still doing the executive protection. And now here we are. It just kind of parlayed forward where I've published 3 books. My third book, Force on Force, was written. It's modeled after Force on Force training with simunition. So if people don't understand what that is, it's scenario-based training using protective safety gear. We have to interact with human beings as opposed to paper targets. It's high-level stuff. My first exposure to that was in 1995 at the National Tactical Invitational. I was hooked immediately. I saw the value. This is right up my lane, and it's something
Right.
I've been very passionate about ever since. Um, Anyways, with that, I was for over 25 or 30 years. We've been doing that. I published a book in 2022, but all the lessons learned in that over the years doing that. And that got me some recognition. And I've been doing a lot of expert witness now, expert witness work on firearms training accidents, airsoft training accidents, use of force cases, because we've been teaching the use of force law in New York State for 30 years. So
Right.
it's like, I dream about this stuff. So it's kind of, things are kind of coming full circle for me, I guess, at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so crazy because it seems like every other day you're hearing about a mass casualty shooting incident, around the country.
Mm.
Um, Today, as we're recording, there was nothing today, but who knows? Hopefully by the time this airs on Monday and it's Friday, and when we're recording this, there wasn't a shooting over the weekend. But
Yeah. Well, Chicago, we'll see.
yeah, yeah, right. There is Chicago. Chicago doesn't count in the stats.
No.
Yeah, what's interesting. Speaking about statistics, we've got a very spirited race for mayor going on here in New York, and our good old friend Curtis Sliwa. I saw an ad for him, or he was talking about something online recently, and he was talking about statistics. How if there's a shooting in the Bronx, apparently he was referencing, and there's no casualty, meaning nobody's got hit. So if somebody fired a gun, but nobody actually got injured or nobody died. I think he said nobody died. There was a shooting, but nobody died. They don't actually count that in the statistics. So it's a way that they're able to lower hey, look, I lowered the crime rate,
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
it's pretty common. I've worked a couple cases on the civil side
right.
that there was no criminal charges, not just in New York, but other states. And you go, how can that be? And
Yeah.
it's because they want to keep the numbers down.
Yeah. It's crazy. And it's all about, perception,
Hmm.
all that. And he's walking around like talking to all people like, no, we have shootings here all the time. People are constantly like the friendly fire. It looks like you're out to get some milk and you keep your head down, right? Um,
Yeah, well, I think Curtis is his chances are very low, but
yeah,
I had the opportunity to meet him one time, and he's the real thing.
yeah. No, I've met him a few times actually. You live in New York long enough. I've met everybody except the knucklehead who's running, who's not really from New York. And we won't promote any names here.
No,
We're gonna
no.
stay out of that. But yeah, that's a guy I don't care to meet. Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting. But I want to take a break, and when we come back from
Okay.
taking a break, I do want to dive into basically what you teach and really understanding the use of force and different angles, working on the plaintiff side and on the defense side. And I think the defense side is very interesting, how you handle it. And I know some people that do this kind of work, And I'm always fascinated by it as being the subject matter expert on it. So I really want to dive into this. So everybody sit tight, and we come back. We'll have more.
Conflict International and Argus 365 are looking for investigators and security professionals to be qualified partners in delivering artificial intelligence security solutions. If you have relationships with building managers, retail companies, or property builders, you can make passive income as a partner. Reach out to Matt at m.spaier at conflictinternational.com to learn more. Check out the PI Institute of Education at piinstitute.com. Since 1989, Kelly Riddle has been teaching on subjects such as surveillance, nursing home investigations, insurance fraud, domestic investigations, hidden assets, and accident scene investigations. The PI Institute of Education is a featured learning partner in the investigatorstoolbox.com. So check out the free content on the site, then visit the Institute for more great savings on additional classes. Managing a team of investigators just got easier with TrackOps, the all-in-one case management software. Are you ready to enhance case flows and drive efficiency? TrackOps offers powerful management and coordination tools to streamline workflows and communication, all designed to keep your team synchronized and focused on the task at hand. With TrackOps, you can easily distribute workloads, track individual performance, and ensure deadlines are met. Plus, the TrackOps mobile app allows investigators to access case activities on the go. And the TrackOps video app allows for simple and consistent timestamping, all included at no extra cost. Start streamlining your investigation process today. Visit trackops.com for a free 15-day trial and experience the power of efficient team management. TrackOps, empowering teams, simplifying management. Satellite Investigations has launched its new website full of great new content. Matt and his team have released some great informative blogs. Make sure you log in to LinkedIn and follow Satellite Investigations for the latest content. Over the past year, our industry has been the target of foreign governments and agencies that have attempted to recruit unsuspecting investigators to gather intelligence or immediate expatriates. PI Perspectives is teaming up with the Federal Bureau of Investigations to get the word out about this ongoing crisis. If you've been contacted by an individual or company that might seem suspicious, please contact the FBI at tips.fbi.gov. You can also contact the New York field office at 212-384-1000 to report suspicious activity in any state. The link is also in the show notes. Even if you completed a job and it still doesn't sit right with you, you can report this activity. The only way to stop this trend is to work together. So let's do it.
And welcome back to PI Perspectives. It's Matt Spaier, your host. Today we're here with Don Redl from Apex Intelligence. We're talking about bang bangs. We're talking about guns, pew pews, and we're talking about use of force. Don, I want to welcome you back to the program.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you obviously laid a nice foundation of how you got into the business, what you've been doing, to be this subject matter expert on use of force cases. So tell me a little bit more about who's the typical client for you, who's hiring you to give me two different scenarios.
We'll work for, actually what we've worked for in the past is we've worked for government agencies working on accident training, accident cases. We work for plaintiffs, we work for defendants. It all depends who hires us, because I've always been a big believer in, listen, the case is what it is. So I'll typically, when I get a call from an attorney, I'll tell them, listen, I'll review your case. I'll look at all the discovery, the depositions, and so on, and witness statements, and see what information you have. And then going forward, I'll let you know if I can either be your subject matter expert, and that means I'll be able to testify in deposition or in court, or if I can just remain on as a consultant. Because if an attorney has a bad case, I think it's my responsibility to let him know, listen, this is a bad case for you, because the other expert's going to be, that's what he's going to come up with. So I don't pull any punches, and I always tell
them, they're paying you for that. I mean, always know you're going to lose your case. That's super important. If you don't understand that as a lawyer or an insurance person, then you're in the wrong business.
I told him, you can pay me for my expertise and my time, but my opinion is going to be fact-based
Right.
always. That's just how it is. Otherwise, it would be inappropriate.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, I think a lot of the cases we get involved in, let's say on the defense side, someone uses force and they didn't. It's an otherwise good person. They just made a mistake, or they made
Right.
a series of mistakes. And it's mostly because of lack of knowledge. They don't know what they're doing, getting into before they go out into the real world with a gun, preparing to defend themselves or somebody else, a family member. They don't understand the premise of the law.
Right.
And unfortunately, there's no rewind button. So I see some of these, they're sad cases, and you go, man, if you'd only just not done that one little thing or had done something different, if you had that knowledge ahead of time, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's what it comes down to, man. It's just, it's crazy. I mean, you see it. I live near Newburgh, New York, and there was yesterday a whole big thing where I think an 11-year-old had gotten shot by a family member, by accident, and they shut down like the whole city. They
Yeah,
doing like a manhunt. They thought it was like something different, but it ended up being a domestic thing, which is it's so sad, man.
yeah, it's terrible. It's terrible. Most people don't understand what an actual threat is. And for someone to be a threat to your life or my life or the life of someone you're charged with protecting, they have to have the ability, number one, to cause you death or serious physical injury. They've
Yeah,
got to be armed with a deadly weapon, a gun, knife, New York State brass knuckles or a billy club or a blackjack. These are all deadly weapons,
yeah,
or a deadly instrument. And a deadly instrument is, anything that can cause you death or serious injury based on the manner it's being used.
sure,
So they've got to be armed with something. Now, of course, there's a little bit of caveats to the law as well. I mean, you can have disparity of force, two or three big, strong guys beating up on a small little girl.
right.
That's deadly physical force, disparity of force. Or you can have someone who's a known mixed martial artist or someone with a high level of skill that you have prior knowledge of. But
Right.
that's very few and far.
Right,
That's
Bruce Lee used to brag about that. My hands are registered weapons, right?
Yeah, I don't know who you registered them with,
Exactly.
but and then the opportunity and the person may have the ability, but the opportunity is pretty much it's distance based. A gun is a distance weapon.
Right.
Blunt instruments and knives are contact or close distance weapons. So if somebody with a billy club is 15 yards away, it's a deadly instrument, but he doesn't have the opportunity to use it against you at that time.
Yeah.
So
Um,
these things all come into play.
yeah.
Um, and then your life has to be in jeopardy. That person has had to display a manifested intent to actually want to cause you death or serious physical injury. So these are some things that the average person doesn't realize.
So do you find yourself like, presenting those theories? Let's say, an ADA, tries to bring an indictment, and I guess the indictment comes down, and now there's a trial. I mean, that's a lot of what you do, right? Like this is, yes, it's unfortunate. This is what happened here, but here's why we don't believe this person deserves the full punishment because they didn't meet this criteria, that criteria, and this criteria, right?
Yeah, it's interesting when it goes down that road because a lot of if the threat either exists or it doesn't. There's really no subjective standard there. That's objective. If the person's a threat or they're not a threat.
Right.
But it's the justification side. If or your actions lawful, one was that did the threat exist. Then there's innocence. If you can't claim justification if you were the initial aggressor. So
Right.
you're not an innocent party if you're the initial aggressor. You can't start a fight,
Right.
then you're losing the fight and you use force and claim justification. It doesn't work that way. The threat has to be imminent. It either has to be occurring or about to occur. It can't be, something that may occur in the future, or if it occurred in the past, that's revenge. It occurred in the past. So there's a lot of things that you have to take into consideration. Proportional.
Yeah.
Um, you have to match force with force. If someone's a better fighter than you with their fists, and you're just getting a beating because you deserve it. You can't use deadly physical force to stop that. And so,
Right.
in the circumstances, the proportionality and the were they reasonable? Let's say the a jury of your peers is going to look at your actions, and so is the charging authority, and maybe a grand jury is going to look at your actions and say, were these actions reasonable? Were they what anybody else would have done under the same circumstances? So, that's a subjective evaluation right there that you're going to have to convince somebody. So it's not easy. I always tell people, listen, what we do is we, in the executive protection world, we avoid, evade, disengage, and escape because we
Right.
don't want to use force ever if we don't have to,
Of course.
because there's no happy ending to that.
Oh, no,
The day you use force is going to be the worst day of your life, and it's going to be followed by a lot more even worse days for a long time till it's resolved.
right.
So,
Then you turn around and say, how did I get here?
yeah, exactly. Then you've got some different laws that are really misunderstood in different states. For example, New York State has a duty to retreat laws in the law. So if you have the ability, how the law is written, it says if you have the ability to retreat with complete safety before using any force, you have to.
Yeah.
That means you can establish a threat, you can be justified in all your actions, but if an assistant district attorney decides that you could have ran away and you didn't, they can still charge you.
Yeah.
And it's just
Yeah, I can think of a situation
Hmm.
that happened. I think it was maybe last year or the year before, where, and you're probably familiar with it, where there was a bodega owner, and the guy was like being robbed, and I think he was defending himself with a knife, and he ended up killing the person that was trying to rob the place, and he was charged, which is
Sure.
crazy. So maybe that's the consideration of that law. I don't know.
Yeah, if you're the owner of a property, or if you're legally, privileged to be in someone else's property, you're a guest in someone's home or a business, or it's your job. You don't have to flee. You don't have to flee that. You don't have to flee your own home.
Right.
So I'm not familiar with that case, but
Yeah.
then you get
And I'm paraphrasing. I may not know all the
yeah.
so.
Then you get states like Florida that said, wait a minute, we don't want to have that duty to retreat clause because that means that the innocent people that acted justified can be charged. And we
Right.
don't want that to happen here.
Yeah.
So they put in the stand your ground law.
Right.
And stand your ground is nothing more than you don't have to retreat. That's all it is. But there's a lot of misconceptions because
Oh God, Jesus! I mean, you put on a hoodie and talk about stand your ground, and it's a whole different conversation, for crying out loud.
people in Florida think, not all people, but I've heard people say, "Oh, I stand your ground. I can defend myself whenever I want." It's like,
Right.
no, it doesn't work that way. The establishing a threat and establishing justification don't go away because stand your ground.
Yeah. No, that's a good
Yeah.
point. And I think there are a couple of misconceptions
Mm.
out there, not just that one, but you see these things, and and you bring up a good point too. It's state to state, right?
Yeah, sure. You
Um,
know, the elements of a threat are the same in all 50 states, and the element of justification are the same in all 50 states. It's just the states that enact those other provisions, like duty to
Right.
retreat or stand your ground.
right.
But I'm actually to the point now, it's been quite a while, that I don't have these conversations in public anymore. Like if I'm
Right.
at a dinner party or out with a mixed group of people, I just listen because you hear the crazy people have the craziest ideas, and you go,
Yeah.
you're going to end up in court or
Yeah.
jail or something. It's just, I don't know. You sit there and go, I can't help you.
Yeah. Yeah. I may have had that experience once or twice. Pick your battles. I mean, just in general, that whole idea of like going to a cocktail party or whatever and just talking about things like that, politics or laws or just things that there may be people that feel very strongly the other way. Like You're never going to change anybody's mind.
No, no.
It's not worth even talking about.
I'm not going to lose any friends or relationships, personal or business or anything, over things I can't affect.
Yeah.
You know, as long as everyone wants to live their life, just enjoy your life. You know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Powers you.
yeah.
Just if I got to stand my ground and I'm in Florida, I'm okay. That's all I
Yeah. That's
know.
all.
So,
Yeah. Oh man.
it's crazy. So what are some of the other misconceptions, as an investigator, somebody calls you and says, "Hey, I got this issue, this problem, can you help me?" What do you think is some of the things that the average investigator doesn't realize, the nuances of what you do?
Of just investigations or
No, I
these
mean,
type of
like these
cases.
situations, the use of force.
I got a case where listen, I better not discuss that. That's still new,
Yeah.
but
No
you know,
NDAs, dude.
you know, I've got one case where when I first got all the material and I looked at it and I watched the police interview and I'm going through all the discovery, I said, man, you know what? This guy's not, he's just made a couple mistakes. So when I went and when I talked to the attorney and the client, we had our meeting, the first meeting after I put my draft together. I said, I just want to start by telling you that I really believe that you thought your life was in jeopardy. I really believe that's how you felt. But there's some problems here because it may or may not have been. You know, you got a little bit of an uphill battle here.
Right.
And the attorney stopped me and he said, Don, hold on. He goes, wait a minute. Your words are the exact same words that the district attorney said, word for word. He goes, and that's why I sent it to the grand jury to let them make the decision because he didn't want to have to make the charging decision. He was ultimately charged.
No,
And
you,
it's,
you find that we get that on the sex cases too, where it's
mm,
maybe it could be, it's not sure. I just send it to the grand jury. Like
yeah,
there's a lot of times where they say the case isn't strong enough. Send it to the grand jury.
yeah. But I'm sitting there going, and this is a guy who's facing probably 15 years in prison, maybe more.
Right.
And all he had to do was just drive away. I mean, he didn't. I don't want to get too much into the case, but he
Yeah.
made a couple silly mistakes that if you could hit the rewind button,
Yeah.
it would have been so easy.
So how have you seen technology, like the fact that there's video all over the place, and now you're seeing expression, you're seeing body language, you're actually able to see these things happen. Like, how has that changed your process of analysis and on all this stuff?
Well, a lot of the cases that I worked, there really is not a lot of video, so that really hasn't been a factor for me at this point. I think a lot of the ones that do have extensive video, they tend to shut down quicker. I think they tend to end quicker. That's
Yeah.
just
I
my
gotta feel like
observation.
the use of force cases with police, like if someone's charging the police of use of force, like they're all wearing body cameras now, and
Yeah,
you're seeing things. And God, man, if you go on TikTok or whatever, you see these videos, and you're just like, God, why did I watch that? Like, I didn't want to see that.
we had a case where a guy actually called the police. He was the guy that made the phone call. Said there's someone with a gun.
Right,
So it was a suicide by cop type thing. And
right,
the police show up, and it's his word versus their word, and so on. And but the body camera showed there he is waving a gun.
right,
So the police shot him, which is what he wanted, and
right,
the body camera exonerated him,
right.
which is a good thing.
Yeah, I feel like we're probably going to see more and more of that, where you have these independent cameras all over the place. You got the ring
Sure.
doorbells on people's houses. You got the body cams. You got, just the idea that there's so much technology, especially when, you start talking about cities like New York, where it's just, there's so many people and there's so many cameras all over the place. London's another place. You can't go anywhere in London without being recorded.
Mhm.
Just understanding that it's out there, and it's gonna help. But then, you have the deep fake aspect of it. But I'm thinking more along the lines of like just intent with body language, like seeing how aggressive somebody is with things. I think it's got to play a part, right?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. Absolutely. But body language, being aggressive and yelling and screaming, is only, that's a very low level of force.
Right. It's
You know,
not
that,
punishable.
yeah, it's not, it's not. Now you've got these groups of people that are going out
Yeah.
and they're targeting police. They're just to antagonize them,
Right.
trying to lure them into doing things that are
Yeah.
going to get lawsuits.
Yeah.
It's and that's happening all over the place.
We had a problem with that in New York like 2 years ago. It was really
Mm.
bad. I want to think it's gotten better, but there was a time where, yeah, if you go up to the Bronx, I mean, there were just like people would light fires, so the
Mm.
police would show up, and then they're throwing garbage at them, they're doing whatever. They're bouncing up and down off the police cars. I saw something the other day where somebody was like humping the police car. Like, really, dude?
You
Uh,
know, the cops have it. It's tough. It's tough on the cops today because whatever they do, they're wrong. It doesn't matter that they're always wrong. So it's they're damned if they do, they're damned if they don't. So
right,
it's not easy.
right. Right. So, let's talk more scenarios here. Like, so obviously, you're hired to give opinion on that. What are some of the things, like maybe a case that surprised you the way it turned out?
Yeah, I had a case I worked in Chicago last year where my client was actually shot 6 times.
Mm-hmm.
The first 3 shots that were fired at her were probably justified. The first two definitely justified, maybe the third, but she was driving away. She was speeding away,
Right.
and the guy continued to shoot at her 13 more times into the down the side of her car, into the trunk, in the back window. Car with tinted windows that you couldn't see in, and it
Right.
was driving away. It was fleeing, and in the end, that person was exonerated. He won the case, but my client lost. It's still hard to believe because I was sitting in the witness stand, and I had the entire jury like on the edge of their seat. They were just prior to me testifying. My attorney client told me that a couple of the jurors fell asleep like in the days before I got there.
Right.
When I was sitting there, they were on the edge of their seat, making eye contact with me, listening to me. I was explaining everything, and a couple of days later, the attorney told me he lost the case. I said,
Wow.
"Wow,
Yeah,
it,
you do see that happen. I mean, I see them on my
mm,
end too. Obviously,
mm,
it's not a life changing event because nobody's going to prison for the
mm,
work that I do, but you know, it's always the risk you run when you say no. I want a trial by jury,
yeah."
right?
The other side brought in an expert police officer from a different state
Yeah,
who actually stated in his report that the shooter acted within, the accepted police procedures, like
yeah.
shooting at a car driving away from you that you can't see inside. It was a tough one to swallow, but it
Yeah.
is what it is.
Did they appeal it? Do you know, or no?
I'm not sure. I
Yeah.
haven't heard back from him.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing too. Like
Mm.
sometimes a jury just hates the attorney. Oh, this person's pompous. I don't like him.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
or her. It like you see stuff like that happen. It's weird. I was on a case once. I've told this story before where the jury came back and it was a civil case and they came back with like a ridiculous amount. When you look at the injuries and what happened, and the judge lost his mind. Like he started screaming at the jury, "You didn't understand my instructions. I was very specific. Blah, 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 blah. There's no way." And it was a group of guys. There was 8 of them. There's no way you're giving those guys that much money. It was like $81 million.
Oh,
Came back, yeah.
God.
And these guys are like, we've hit pay dirt. Like, you got hallelujah, here we go.
Yeah.
Right? And he sends the jury back to deliberate more. He goes, obviously you didn't understand me. Get back in there and come back out with a more reasonable, ruling on here, right? So they go back. 2 hours pass, right? So 2 hours they come back, and the foreman stands up and he says, "Your Honor, yes." He said, "Same verdict, same decision. We're not changing our minds." And he looks at the 8 plaintiffs there, and he goes, "You're never gonna see that money because I'm beside this verdict." Like, and he smacks the gavel down. And
Wow.
what's crazy is that it went on appeal, and the defendant in the case was the city of New York. They offered $9 million to these guys, and again, no real physical injuries. This was a false arrest case, violation of civil rights, the whole nine, and they didn't take it. They're like, no, we want to, we're not giving it. We have the judgment. We jury decided for us. Blah blah blah. So it went up on appeal. They lost the appeal and they got $0.
Oh,
Yeah. So it's just
hmm.
you never know. And that was in the Bronx, which everyone's like, oh, you're always going to get paid in the Bronx. It's a very plaintiff friendly. But
Hmm.
yeah, it was interesting. This was before I started my business. This was the person I was working for before, which is why I was there for the trial, because every day I was in there with him. So it's very
Hmm.
interesting to see it work.
Yeah. Yeah. You never know when it gets to a jury. You never know.
Right.
You
Yeah.
know.
It's nuts. So
Hmm.
do you ever get hired to like review policies like before anything happens?
I have not done that. No, I have not done policy review or rewritten anybody's policies for them. No.
Yeah, I know a couple of people like in the space of what you do,
Mm-hmm.
where a municipality will bring them in to review their own policies and procedures and saying
Oh.
like, okay, we're going to be proactive here. Like, where are we short? Where are we coming up short here? And he'll go in and he'll help them kind of craft the proper technology,
Hmm.
the proper technique. I'm sorry for how to do all that stuff, right? But then the same guy will come in and he'll review later on when there has been an incident. He'll go through and say, you guys were really supposed to do this, and it says, it doesn't say that in here, but that's the proper way to do is this. So it plays both sides of the card, but it's very interesting.
Yeah, no, that's a good lane to be in. It's probably the smart lane to be in.
Right.
But a lot of times it's they want to spend the money later as opposed to upfront.
Hmm.
Especially government. Nah, they can wait.
Do you find yourself getting a lot of cases from other investigators that have been contacted and
I just had one today from another investigator in Oklahoma. Sent one of his attorney clients to me today. So yeah.
yeah, yeah, I think that's important. I think even folks that are listening to this, if you're in this space of doing investigative work, like sometimes you'll get calls like this when you're just like, okay, I'm not the right person for this, but
I do that.
being able to
Yeah,
know somebody that does it is important.
I do that all the time as well. I'm happy to refer people to other professionals that can do something that I don't do or
Yeah,
better than I do it.
yeah, that's how we succeed in this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of it's better to know somebody than actually be the person.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like I don't
If
do
you're
that, but I
if
know the
you're
guy who
Don, you got to
does.
read through all the transcripts. I don't want to do that.
It's like I don't do that, but I know somebody who does. And
Right.
I've got a great friend of mine in Tampa, Florida, who's a cyber investigator. So he
Mhm.
does all types of cyber stuff, and that's way out of my lane. But
Yeah.
every now and then I'll get a call for that. So I
Yeah.
just flip it over to him, and in the end, he makes me look good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
I think that's important to know. And you've gone around to different speaking circuits, right? Obviously we met in Colorado, but you've gone around to different associations and you're talking on these
sure,
topics, right?
I've spoken at PPIC in Colorado. I think 3 years now. Fally, I think, in Florida, 3 years. Last year, I spoke at the Alabama organization and also the Georgia
Right.
uh, Range Master Tactical Conference in Texas. I'll be there again coming up in March. I was there last year.
Right.
So, and a couple, private things, bar associations and corporate stuff.
Sure. Sure. No, there's definitely
Mm.
it's an interesting topic, and I always tell people when I go to conferences, I don't usually have the opportunity to sit down and listen to the speaker. Oh well,
Mhm.
why don't you, Matt? You're there. Why are you not watching people? Well, I'm usually there as a sponsor, and I'm sitting at a table waiting for people to try and come and sign up for Investigators Toolbox, or I'm preparing for my own presentation because I'm presenting there on something. It's just we're not afforded to do it. But I sat in on yours, and I made it a point. I was like, okay, I want to make sure that I'm watching this because it's good. And your presentation is great. It's
Well,
really
thanks. I
good.
appreciate that.
When
Thank
you
you.
say the jurors were hanging on to your words, I'm like, I can relate, man. That was good.
Oh, thank you.
Um,
That's nice.
One of the things that you were talking about in that presentation that stuck with me, and maybe you want to cover it again, when you were talking about like the seconds between shots and like the control of that. Can you dive into that real quick? Because I thought that was very cool.
Many years ago, there's a guy named Colonel John Boyd, who's a fighter pilot in the Navy here, World War II era. I think no, it's a little bit after World War II. I think he retired in the 70s. But anyways, he learned early on that the speed at which the brain processes things. So it's called the OODA loop: observe, orient, decide, and act. It's kind of like how your brain is observing your environment, you're orienting yourself to your environment, then you make a
Right.
decision and action, which should be reflexive. It's about a quarter second for each one of those time frames. Now, if you're already involved in an incident, the observation and the orientation part, you're already in. So now it's just a reflexive action. So your brain is really processing things at a speed of about 0.35 to 0.50 of a second.
Right.
So then all that's really based on how much training and life experiences you have and uh, repetitions doing things, for example,
Right.
just like the act of drawing a gun from a holster and presenting it. If you've done that 4 or 5 times, it's going to require conscious thought and action to do it again. If you've done it 5,000 times, it's going to be reflexive. So, anyways, if you're shooting at a speed that's more than 0.35 of a cadence, more than 3 rounds per second, you're probably shooting faster than your brain is processing the
Right.
unfolding situation.
So fascinating, man.
So that's why when I said earlier that my client that got shot the first 2 times were justified, maybe the third shot that the guy shot at her, he pulled the trigger before, I didn't give him the third shot because the brain's moving faster than the body at this point. The body's moving faster than the brain.
Right.
But the subsequent 13, there's no excuse for it. But
Yeah,
anyways,
exactly.
but
That was the
getting
exclamation point.
yeah, but getting back to your shooting cadence.
Yeah.
Now, a really good competitive shooter, like when I was shooting a lot, back when in my competitive days, I was probably shooting at a cadence of about 0.16 to 0.17. So I'm shooting 5 rounds easily a second, no problem, all in a nice tight fist-sized group at 7 yards, easy. And it sounds like it's good, but there's grandmaster shooters, much higher level shooters that can shoot 8 or 9 rounds a second. But if you're shooting in reality at those speeds in a real world situation, you're going to be hitting things you shouldn't be hitting or put too many rounds into something that you shouldn't. And we see it all the time. Police officers get charged with crimes because it might have taken 1 or 2 shots to stop them, but they put 6 or 8 into them.
Yeah.
And it happens all the time.
Yeah.
And it's you got to slow down and don't overdrive your headlights.
Yeah. I mean, I think you see that happening all the
Mm.
time. I mean, they're just emptying, emptying whatever they got in the chamber or in the clip,
Yeah.
which is,
Once they get on that trigger, they don't stop.
I will never judge anybody on any of that stuff because I've never been in that situation myself.
Mm.
So I would never condemn anybody. I mean, I think you bring up a good point of just muscle memory and training, making sure that you're always going to the range and practicing. And, so when you get into those situations, it is kind of automatic on how you do things. It's probably the
But
best way
we see it a lot with force on force training with the simunition because you're shooting man marking ammunition, all different colors, whatever you want. So we know if someone's going to come into a scenario and they're not really a defensive oriented person, they're more of a competitive shooter.
Right.
We'll take the gun and we'll load the magazine with red ammunition, but maybe the first round in the chamber will be blue. So you put them into a situation where they have to shoot, and the first round may hit the target, and the rest of them don't because they're shooting faster than the target's moving. They're not tracking what's going on. They're not staying with the situation. So,
Yeah.
but those other rounds, the other red rounds, are hitting something. They're just not hitting what they should be hitting.
Right. Exactly.
So, I mean, every round fired hits something.
Right.
So, and that's a big learning tool for people when you put them in that situation. Then okay, now I understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, there were 14 in a car somewhere.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
All right, I think we're going to wind down here. Don, how do you get a hold of you if people had questions?
Well, you can get hold of me at my email address, which is Don@Apex, APEX, Intel, INTELL, 2Ls.com.
Perfect. We're going to put that information in the show notes. Yeah, this is a great topic, something different to talk about and something to keep in mind when you are contacted or you have a situation like this. Even if you're taking it on and you have a question, I encourage you to contact on. Just say, hey, this is my situation. What should I focus in on here? Can I pick your brain for a minute, right?
Sure.
That's what we do here in this industry, right? We help each other out. So, all right, great. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We will obviously have more shows before the end of the year, and we appreciate the support. And thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you guys on the next program.
Thank you.
Thanks to Don for talking to us about use of force investigations. Make sure you sign up for the free OSINT training this Wednesday with Scope Now. Additional thanks to Track Ops and PI Institute of Education for sponsoring our podcast. Also, don't forget about investigatorstoolbox.com, where you can type in Perspectives 50 to save $50 when you join up. Please also follow Matt and Satellite Investigations on LinkedIn. If you have a question or a comment about the show, email Matt at matthews@satellitepi.com. You can also find him on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. We'd like your feedback to bring you the best shows possible. And we'll be back next week with a new show. Make sure you tune in and stay safe out there.